Hi, Jinsella. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me, Pascal.
Thanks for being here. So this is the CoPC podcast, the Conflict Transformation, Peace Building and Security Network. We're having this podcasts with people from the peace and development world and the security world, and peace building in the broader sense. And the idea is to talk with interesting people about interesting projects, such as your project and you as a person, Jinsella. I'm looking forward very much to that. So we want to connect people. We want to promote interesting, projects, interesting publications, and anything that's relevant to the peace building community. So you are Miss Hella Jinsella, an emerging leader within the global fight for peace. You're co-founder and executive director of Demilitarise Education, which is a community and guide of modern-day peacemakers working for a world where universities champion peace.
That's right.
Sounds great. Perfectly for this podcast. Yeah, so we were in touch over the community online, and we had a short exchange, and I found it very interesting to talk about this topic, demilitarizing education. I think that's something many people are not aware about. Some might be surprised to see their university on the list. We'll share it later on. We'll see. Maybe there might be some reactions as well on that. We'll see. But before we start with that, maybe if you could say a few words about yourself. So who are you? Who is Jinsella? What drives you? What drives your engagement?
Sure. Yeah, first of all, as well, thank you for having me on, and this podcast and the network. I'm on the one in LinkedIn. It's so valuable because I know me, and this feeds into the question. I studied fashion and did not see myself ending up in the peace and security world. And I think before I did, I was very much no one even believes in world peace. No one even really believes world peace and peace building is a security concern. And I was almost scared to even ask or say I wanted world peace and disarmament, because at least here in the UK, we're made to believe through cultural narratives that it is the military and the army and our very intensely armed security system that is what keeps us safe. So it's amazing to have networks like these, because you really understand that actually no, this is a huge web of knowledge, and this is a huge web of practical action which is happening today for a safer, more peaceful world. So yeah, thanking you for platforming that. So yeah, as I said, studied fashion, and I was on my year in industry in London, and I was working for Vivienne Westwood and the graduate, what's called fashion graduate, have this London fashion graduate have this massive fashion show and stuff. I was working for them, and I also worked for the hemp trading company, and they basically introduced me to the dED Arms Fair. So every other year, London hosts one of the world's biggest arms fairs. And I went to this protest, and I honestly had my mind blown.
Arms fair. What type of arms do they sell or promote?
All types.
Everything.
I was watching military warships being brought in through the canal, to be docked and brought into the Excel Center. There has been, I think it was 2017. I can refer you to the Stop the Arms Fair website, which has the tracks, because there was traces. There was some journalists that went into the arms fair that saw that they were selling illegal chemical weapons in there. There's missiles, there's all sorts, right? Wow. And in the UK, we invite and welcome at least 18 of our human rights watch list countries to come and buy arms from this fair. So, you can imagine I've got many stories on just how weird it is, and even saw a couple of sources, very different sources, telling me that for the military and defense sector, it's a massive piss up almost. People are getting drunk. How you imagine any kind of buying and selling fair, You get given loads of free stuff, and they're getting given like grenades, stress balls, and like all this really weird
and
stuff.
then walk around with it in the city, or what? I guess not.
Well, I don't know.
We don't know.
I
We don't
think,
know.
yeah, exactly. Like you presume these suits are then like off to a fancy hotel we'll never get to. But like, I don't know. I just know that there are many things which happen, mostly booze, which distracts the people at this fair from the realities of the machinery that they are selling and to whom they're selling it to. So you can imagine me as a fashion student, like, oh my gosh, I'm studying how to make fashion more sustainable and better for the planet, while our government willingly welcomes in war criminals to buy some of the world's top war machinery to, you know, whoever
So
wants to buy it.
who organized the fair? Is it public or private?
So it's the arms. There's like an events company. What are they called again? Let me just Google. Yeah, there's an events company that organize it. Clarion Defence UK Limited.
Yeah.
So they organize it. But of course it is supported by, like any of the arms companies that are actually getting arms export licenses, it is supported by our government. So yeah, it was there which I honestly had my mind blown and decided like I'll go back to university and raise some awareness about this. And I arrived back at university like, oh my gosh, I've just realized this. The UK hosts one of the world's biggest arms fairs and nobody knows about it. And then I found out that through the Boycott, Divestments and Sanctions of Israel campaign, who are, you know, fiercely involved in trying to uncover university connections to arms, particularly in Israel, they had already done loads of research and was like, yeah, it's not just the arms fair. Our universities are actively partnering with arms companies to build research, to invest in them, and to promote career paths with arms companies from our higher education system. And that's where the kind of baseline of creating education came from.
Okay, so it's based on a, let's say, real life experience and kind of a shock, as I understood.
Absolutely.
From what you saw and what happened. Yeah, it's probably can happen to, you know, many people in different settings. You know, even Switzerland, we're a neutral country and let's say peaceful in principle, but we have a strong arms industry actually exporting many military goods. At least theoretically, not lethal arms to warring nations, at least officially, but then, you know, you sell it to another nation who sells it further and so on. Even with the licenses they need to produce, like every year we get news from some Swiss produced army material that ended up somewhere in a war. And, you know, yeah, I think best thing is not to have it, not to produce it, not to sell it, not to have war, but that's probably not for tomorrow, but I guess we're all working in that direction, as I understood. Good. So yeah, let's talk about your movement, the Demilitarise Education. What do you call it? Organization, a movement, or how do you call it?
We call it a community for foremost and for whatever that saying is, because, you know, it is actually just a group of people. We are officially an organization, a non-profit organization, because in the UK, it is very hard to get charity status while you're running a campaign. And I just want to come back to what we were saying about the fact that you cannot control where arms end up, because right now we're creating a video series based on the book Indefensible: 7 Myths That Sustain the Global Arms Trade. And that exact issue of this idea that, oh, it's been for a proper procedure, it's got the right licensing, it's gone to a, you know, non-conflict ridden state, so it's okay. How that's a myth, as you said, and it goes wherever. So definitely head over to our YouTube. you can see on the screen for those listeners and viewers that are watching,
Yeah.
there's a YouTube button under the donate. All those videos will be out by the end of the year. But this is one of the things we really wanted to tackle, right? I'm not sure how many of you listeners have experienced student campaigning. Now, it's amazing because you are in a university environment and there's so much energy, there's so much, desire to make change, and you're with lots of people that are in exactly the same boat. So it's quite an exciting place to be. However, because most degrees here in the UK are 3 years long, so you have 1 year of like figuring out what you want to do. Second year, like, okay, let's get really involved. And then your final year, you're just studying. So you don't have a lot of time. So what often happens is all the hard work that these students have been doing, as soon as they graduate, is lost. And you get a whole new group of students coming in that are trying exactly the same things, having exactly the same wins, exactly the same fails, and the cycle repeats itself. So we experienced this firsthand, and we really wanted to create a database that would stand the test of time and be a central source of information for student campaigners working for demilitarized education systems, to be able to come back to see what previous students have done, look at the research people have already collected, and benchmark different universities so we can start to say, okay, our university is currently the top ranked most peaceful university in the UK, and we can be very proud of that. Obviously, it can go the other way as well, being the most militarized, the most involved in the arms trade and defense sector. So yeah, this is for, again, those that are watching, it's on screen now. We are working with volunteer developers, so every week our database is looking shinier and clearer, and we love all feedback on how you find experience. But if Pascal, you wouldn't mind clicking on the view detailed.
Yeah. So maybe just shortly before we go to the details. So this is the overview with a couple of universities. Goes from here is 0 apparently, Anglia Ruskin University, then starts with University of York, 20,000 pounds value of defense industry investments, and then up to, what is it, 3,500,000 pounds for the Imperial College of Science, Technology and Medicine. So that's a big number. So let's see the details.
Yes, I'll just say as well, the reason some of them has 0 still is because we've been getting all this.
You don't know yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's simply because we were just scratched the surface, right? These £3 million we're looking at right now with Imperial College of Science, Technology and Medicine, that's us just scratching the surface. We have a lot more research to do, and next week, I'm not sure when this is actually going to go live, this conversation, but on the 27th of September, we will be launching research cycles. And what that means is we'll invite you, any of you listeners, particularly students, of course, to come onto our Discord server and join us for group research sessions where we will be actually showing you how to gather information about your university's involvement in the arms trade and how to contribute it to our database so that other students can use it and see it and have that information to work for a more peaceful university system.
So maybe you send me the link and I can also add it to the comment section.
Yes, I would love that.
Good. So what do we see here? Imperial College of Science, Technology and Medicine, £3.5 million. 2 direct links with arms companies. That must be the ones on the right. Is that the case? Rolls-Royce, Ministry of Defense, and Rolls-Royce, Germany.
Yes. So this page gives us an overview. Now, the direct links with arms companies is in reference to research project versus maybe investment projects. Because what we see a lot of the time is universities having investment like managers that will then invest in a bank that is connected to this arms company, and so on, so on, so on. So what we mean by direct is either, a career funneling tactic within university where they might be saying, we want to offer these graduate schemes, or a research. So the arms company would say, we will sponsor your student if they do this research for us. So we have these different types of, we're not going to pretend that it doesn't get very complicated when you're trying to untangle university connections to the arms trade, because here in the UK, a lot of our economy is connected to the arms trade. So we have on the left-hand menu of the website, we have the definitions which we are defining, which will explain a little bit better about, what we mean by direct arms companies when we're talking about an investment versus a research project. But yeah, what we do is we take advantage of the Freedom of Information Act request, which by law means that we have the right to receive and see information held by public bodies. So we work with students, and we're always inviting new students in, or if you're not a student and you want to just research with us, come through. And we show them how to write successful FOIs.
So it's under the Access to Information Act, something like that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And always the same problem, let's say, is you need to know what you're looking for. You need to ask concrete questions. You cannot just say, send me everything that somehow relates to, then they don't have to answer. You have to ask a precise question, I guess.
Have you done this before, Pascal?
A little bit. Well, I worked on access to information before, yeah.
Nice. It's exactly that. You have to say, within this time frame, this type of partnership, you have to define as much as you can, because if you ask for too much information or something that's not specific, they will just reject the request. So yeah, you have to be strategic. And obviously it can be quite hard if you're a student and you're like, I guess usually I always say you got to find an anchor. Sometimes people are interested in a specific arms company. It might be BAE Systems, because here in the UK, they've been campaign against arms trade actually took the government to court for allowing BAE Systems to have export licenses to Saudi Arabia. So it's a real interest point. So maybe BAE Systems is your anchor. Now, from that anchor, you need to make sure you're very clear about what other information you need.
So I see here on your list Rolls-Royce. So they do more than car manufacturing, as I understand.
Yes. This is funny you say this as well, because anyone that has been on our YouTube channel, you might have seen a video of me asking the Vice Chancellor of the University of Manchester, at what point does our research and commercial interest sorry, I've worded this wrong. At what point does human life in other countries come before our research and commercial interest? And she replies, well, while our government does it, why wouldn't we? And we were talking about Yemen and the crisis happening in Yemen. And we then started talking about Rolls-Royce in this conversation. And she said, well, are you not going to get the bus? Because Rolls-Royce also, provide the engine of the bus. And I'm like, no. So Rolls-Royce has like a few different, like a lot of these companies, they'll have parent companies and then smaller companies, but Rolls-Royce makes mostly engines for the military. But there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it, which if you want to come and research more into Rolls-Royce with us, let's do that.
Right. Good. Okay. So we have this overview. What else to see here?
Yes, so I guess the next place to go is, well, actually, one thing I really want to highlight, because we've not really launched this yet, but I think it's a really exciting prospect, is we have latest actions. And this is discussing this is where a student can say, I emailed my university and they responded like
Okay.
this. Or they can say, we held a protest today and it went like this. Or whatever the action you're taking may be, you can track it here. And I think this will be a really powerful tool to not just connect people, but to show people what's actually working.
Yeah. So maybe can you elaborate a little bit more? You said you have to scratch the surface, or you're only scratching the surface so far. How do you do that? I mean, you send requests under this Access to Information Act, but how do you know? I mean, how do you know which type of questions to ask, which type of, where do you get the information from? How concretely, how can you scratch the surface and maybe even go deeper?
So I want to just straight away direct everyone to come to join our meetups on Discord, because this is what we're exactly going to teach you. We want to show you the way to construct a Freedom of Information Act request and how do you find out what you're asking for, right? So we usually do try and just start by looking on university websites, because they do have a lot of information. Even looking at, a financial report, you can find a lot of information. And this takes us to our second tab here, policies. So that's a quick thing anyone can do. You can go to your university's policy page and you can see if they are actually making any statements about,
right. Okay, I see.
about their ethics, about how they want to invest, and whether they publicly state they do want to be involved in, armament or not. So that's a really good place to start. And through doing this, for example, at the University of Manchester, where I went, because of there's such a strong Palestinian community in Manchester that were fighting for divestment, their target was Caterpillar. And because Caterpillar make, they custom designed bulldozers, which have been used in occupied Palestine to knock down people's homes. So this was our two anchor points for me at the time, because of that cultural thing that was happening there, and this policy which says we seek to eliminate the armament of military regime. So we have these 2 points of our campaign, which then guides what Freedom of Information Act requests we want to send and what information we want to retrieve.
Okay. Yeah. Good. A lot of research work, and then transform this into a request, and then hopefully get the answer. How open are the universities? Are they like openly responding? Are they maybe even getting to dialogue, or rather reluctant and block, or how would?
Rather reluctant. Yeah. So I want to just say as well, because we're saying scratch the surface, because we have been busy building this system, the database, the world's first university and arms database. And we've been building the baseline for our community so we can have a safe space for people to work. So I don't want everyone to seem like this is going to be really deep, intense research that's going to like make you lose your marbles. We've done that hard work, and we're really excited that next week we'll actually be starting to teach students and, show them that there are clear and easy ways to do it. So yes, the last time I mean, again, we need more research on this. I'm sure different universities will have different, communication levels, and we want to track this on the database so we know that. We've just been working with Save the Children, who are putting us in contact with sabbatical officers, which means our students' union representatives. And next week, when we launch our events, we will be working with them to understand what their universities are like, because often you can just tell, like, okay, they're being very cold to students, they're not respecting the vote of the student union, they're not going to want to talk about arms divestment.
Yeah.
Other universities are a bit more open and warm and like, democratic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the last email I sent to the University of Manchester, they said, we're forwarding this to the sustainability guy, and then I never got a response there. So yes, we keep trying.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What type of mandates are these in terms of research, for instance? I mean, how can we imagine that it's a company asking the university to do research about how to get stronger ammunition, or I don't know, how to better track enemies? So I don't know. Do you have any idea on what type of research?
Well, if you go on the research tab here,
Yeah. Oh.
we can have a look.
Oh, there's Switzerland. General Electric.
Hey, if you
Sorry for
click on
that.
the source.
Here.
Yes.
This one. This one. The link.
Yes, the link.
Okay.
So it very much depends. A lot of the time, it will be an arms company, but they'll be calling it something unrelated to arms.
Mm-hmm.
In this case that we're looking at, research funding from arms company. Let's have a scroll through. So it was received, a lot of this finance was received in the form of industrial consultancy. So often what that means is an arms company will be coming and advising on how a student takes their research forward. With what objective? I mean, we can only presume. The total amount of pounds sterling that the university has received in research funding from the Ministry of Defence in the last 5 years, details shown. So if we scroll down a little
here's
further.
the answer, yeah.
Yeah, so in this particular FOI, there's not much really defining the research that is happening, more the finance that is going in. So this opens another gap for us to ask questions on. I do know that the Magna drone, which is a surveillance drone that has been used, been seen to be used in Palestine, occupied Palestine, that was built in the University of Manchester. Now, a lot of time as well, it's more like maths departments, and they'll be building algorithms which enable autonomous weapons. But again, this is the start of our exciting research journey. So I think you're right to ask that, Pascal, because this is what interests people. This is what hooks people in, like a tangible item that has been developed. So yeah, with the student community, we hope to really uncover all of this.
Yeah, that's really very interesting. I think it's a big start, an important start for doing that work, and then see further. And how would you understand the harm that is done with this type of research? I mean, I think it's obvious that if you support arms and armies, then you help them potentially probably killing people. So that's the main issue, I guess. Or how would you frame it otherwise? How would you frame why this is actually a problem?
Wow, yes. This is so important because, we don't just see it as a survival need because of, the war, right? I personally know that as a diabetic, that if I was suddenly in a war-struck country, I would not survive. So one, we're trying to prevent war. And the more arms that are circulating the world, the more risk of threat, the more threat there is and the more instability we see. Now, the other angle to look at it is the fact that not just the product of these investments and research projects, which are used in destructive ways and oppressive ways, but it's also the fact that our education systems are normalizing war as a key tool for peace building.
Mm-hmm.
This is not true. This is incorrect hypothesis. And while we continue to invite arms companies in, and don't get me wrong, our government, it's a strategic recruitment tactic for our armies. They try to get the arms companies and military into, primary schools, secondary schools, and universities, so to promote that it is a good thing to do and a good thing to be involved in, so that we continue to support it. What this is really doing is not just creating a direct response, which is continued normalization of military strategies, but it's also taking away our freedom of thought, our critical analysis of war and militaries, and preventing further innovation in peace.
So that money could be much better invested in researching for peace than for war.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that's a very important point that you're making. So it's a philosophical standpoint that they take. It's peace by balance of power, I would say, rather than peace by peaceful means.
Yes.
And that's this nice saying where if you get a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So
exactly. Yeah. And I think this takes us on to our treaty. We're trying to get universities to sign the treaty. And if you click and you just scroll down past the interpretations and text of treaty, you see it says, scroll up a little bit more, sorry. Yeah. The institution signing this treaty, hereinafter referred to as the parties to the treaty, considering the devastation that armed conflict has had in the world, believing that as higher education institutions, they hold a responsibility for forming tomorrow's leaders, believing that as higher education institutions, they are at the forefront of innovation in the technology and research sectors. Wow, I can't speak. I'm so sorry. But I think these two lines of the treaty really do demonstrate it. We're supposed to be coming up with incredible solutions, and incredible military solutions are being created in these spaces. So why not peace solutions? Why not sustainability solutions?
Exactly. And I think there's another crucial sentence which says, in conformity with legally binding international treaties signed by the UK that advocate for the respect of human rights and the end of senseless conflicts. So I think that's one of the main points of view. Yeah. Okay. And so now you start getting this signed, or trying to, or how is it going?
So our strategy, we call this our demilitarization model because we have 3 stages to it. The first is to engage universities in the issue. The second is to get a signature and ratify that agreement, which means create a plan for how they will make the changes we're asking for. And then, of course, implement. So right now, we're next week starting the engagement phase. And what that means is we're going to be working with students to populate this database. And by September next year, 2023, we want to have research on every university in the country so that we can accurately benchmark these institutions. And from that, we will have some public leverage to really push for them to sign the treaty.
Okay. Yeah. How do you expect this to go? I mean, in the sense of motivation by the universities would be, I think maybe once you get one university signing might be a motivation for others, a trigger for others, or difficult to know before you start.
Well, the really amazing thing is that the fossil-free movement has achieved over let me look it up, but they've achieved hundreds of signatures for their commitment to be fossil free.
By universities?
So if they can, by universities.
Okay.
So I'm just going to direct you all to People and Planet's website. Go to People and Planet's website, and like somewhere you'll be able to see like how many millions of pounds. I think it's like £5 million or something like that they've got them to divest from fossil free fuels. So, you know, we do have a history of student campaign success. And it makes sense because like it's probably one of the only, you know, clear-cut places within society where students gather and can collectively work towards a mission. So we have a lot of hope. We also know that with new emerging wars across the world, for example, Ukraine, war is really on the tip of people's tongues right now. And it is all starting to look, you know, unfortunately, like, because we want to speak and hear and stand in solidarity with all sufferers of war, not just ones which may be relatable to our culture. Like, no, that's not it at all. But the Ukraine war has really triggered this conversation in the UK. And it's something which we believe will benefit our conversation. Of course, it has a lot of people asking is surely this is not a good time to, you know, disarm. We want to be building our armament, so to prevent Russia. However, we really go for a much more
without arms, we wouldn't be there. I mean, that's the other way to see it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's you know, the problem starts a little earlier than that. And maybe if some of the, again, amazing military innovation which has come out of universities was actually war prevention or disarmament innovations, then this war would be at least a lot less deadly.
Yeah. How about promoting those who potentially signed the treaty, you know, to put them on a positive spotlight as, let's say, peace champions or whatsoever, you know, in parallel to the kind of, you know, how you call it, those negative spotlight and saying, okay, you have military investment and so on. The positive one also to motivate and to, you know, to promote them as peace champions when they sign and implement the treaties. That planned also?
Yes, absolutely. We want to have like a, you know, some sort of icon which really does celebrate these universities. And we don't want to come at it as just, you know, telling them off. We want them to see how this treaty and this commitment helps them as an organization, because you know, they are running like businesses trying to get funding. It helps their community. Students being the biggest stakeholder, like most universities we've looked at, their biggest source of income is students. So building that trust with students from signing this treaty and committing to peace rather than war development is something we think can really have a positive effect, and we want to celebrate universities for that. Now, this is where I'm going to do a shameless like ask for help and say, please donate to us, because we have a big community now and we're talking to students, and there's so many ideas coming in, like the one you just suggested, saying you should do this on your website, you should do this as well. And we just don't have the money or capacity to do it right now. We're really slowly making improvements and making everything come to light. You can donate, you know, £10, even £1. If you're a bit more, you know, we would be able to directly use that money to employ a web developer who could make this happen a lot quicker.
Yeah, I see. It's very easy to donate. So there's the donate button on the website, bottom left, and it's very easy to enter an amount and to support this endeavor.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how to join? So as I understood, it's quite open to contribute or even to join the movement. You have this meeting, you said the 27th. I'm sure we will be online before that, so people will know it who listen to that podcast. Is it a physical on-time meeting, or is it something recorded, or does it require presence, or how can they get there if they want?
So on the website, you can see down in this bottom corner, there's a little
Here?
Discord button,
Yeah.
which is that bottom one. Exactly. This is the best way to just really quickly, without any signups or anything, just join our Discord server.
Okay.
This is where we communicate, and this is where we host all of our meetups. The events, which are happening next week and beyond, will be hosted there. So it's basically like a 1 hour practical session where we get together on a video and voice call to talk you through how to do it and answer questions and actually do the work.
Okay.
Our community is there the whole time though, chatting and doing whatever.
So it's very
when
lively.
you're ready, sorry.
It's a very lively community, like on the Discord server. I personally, I don't know Discord, but maybe I'll discover it with through this. So they're there and responding and chatting and right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we've got more work to do. We've got friends with like 2,000 people on their server. We're at 70 people right now, and
it's a good start.
It is. And, you know, it's amazing just being in that space with passionate people, like chatting about something you all care about. So,
Yeah.
you know, come through, you can help make it even more engaged and get to those high numbers. Also on our website, if you click on the homepage, so just that icon in the corner, yes, thank you. You will then be able to see the join dED. Now,
Here, okay.
Yes. Now, by filling out the Join dED form, it will create a user account on our website. This is really exciting because it will then activate your peacemaker space.
Yeah.
And this has a personal impact tracker. It will tell you how many Freedom of Information Act requests you've sent. It will tell you how much you've personally uncovered for the database, or say you've submitted some content or joined 6 of our events. It will show you what you've done to contribute towards our mission.
So everybody can become a peace champion.
Exactly. Yeah, we haven't really thought through this like ranking system, but right now it's just like you have been the most active user this month.
Yeah.
And
great.
Stuff like that. And we'll obviously develop that as we can. But yeah, we really want to make a clear path for people to actually feel like they are having an impact. And that's why we've designed this all like this. And yeah, by joining, I mean, you have to join to actually upload research to the database, one. But secondly, we hope that like joining will just kind of make you feel, help you to understand how you are a part of something bigger.
Okay, so we invite everybody to join the movement. How for people outside the UK? If somebody from another country wants to do the same work for his or her own university?
We've had like 2 requests in the last week for this, and again, donate people. We would love to do this. And of course, if you are a passionate change maker, peacemaker that would like to you know, take lead on bringing your country into this database, then that would be amazing. We really welcome that. We're not trying to gatekeep. We want this database to be a global tool. However, because it takes a very long time to understand the university systems and understand the structure that enables us to fill the gaps, it will take a lot of work. So yes, this is why the more our capacity grows, the more we can invite the international community.
Perfect. Good. Perfect. So really very nice initiative. Congratulations for that. I hope it will grow, and maybe this podcast can help a little bit to get the information out there for either supporting you, maybe donating or joining as a volunteer. And I think it's important and substantial work that you're doing. Congratulations.
Yes. Can I ask you, why
Yeah.
do you think we should demilitarize education?
Oh, yeah, I fully join your motivations. Maybe to put it in my own words, yeah, it's the fact that we should rather go for peaceful means rather than for arms and, you know, and wars, and studying peace rather than studying war. I know there are a lot of, maybe that's another dimension similar to what you're doing. There are different study programs, you know, some are studying war and actually how to conduct an effective war, and others are studying peace. So I myself, I had the chance to do a Master of Peace Studies at Distance University in Hagen in Germany. There was a couple of years ago. And so I think that makes probably more sense than studying how to carry out an effective war. And to, yeah. Then, yeah, I mean, you know, between the realists and the idealists, I guess the objective should be really to go for full peace. That should be the mission. That should be our aim. It won't be for tomorrow, and maybe in the meanwhile we need to be a little bit realistic for specific situations. I can understand that, but we should always strive for disarmament. And there are a couple of countries, actually, I think, forgot the list now, but I know Costa Rica, and there are a handful of countries without armies, and I think these are good examples. And what we actually need is some kind of I mean, you know, I think violence is part of human nature, so it will always be there, and we will have to manage it somehow. But probably the best way to do that would be under I don't know, international peace force managed by the UN, so a centralized armed group or police force or something, rather than having the different countries in the jungle and fighting each other. Yeah, and
Interesting.
what you're doing is an important step in that direction.
Amazing. Thank you. And that's so interesting as well. Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. Anything else you want to say? Any message? Anything you want to promote apart from the platform? I saw you have also, I don't know, another recording somewhere. I don't know if you have a publication or just people should just come to your website and subscribe and donate.
Yes.
That's
Subscribe, come to our Discord to like actually get involved and join the community. You know, share our content, just come and ask questions. It's an interesting thing to find out, like how involved in the arms trade and military is my university. And if you have any interest in that question, then, you know, we're the community for you. So yeah, just peace and love to all you peacemakers out there, you know, like you're not alone. Keep at the amazing work, and remember, we ain't dead yet.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Jinsella. You're the co-founder, founder, and executive director of Demilitarization Education Community. Thanks again for your work. Thanks for participating to this podcast. And see you soon,
Thank you
hopefully.
for having me.
Have a good time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.